My name is Ethan Cole, a man whose heart has been thoroughly shattered, now ready to embrace the single life. The air conditioning in the CEO's office was cranked up too high. Sitting on the exorbitantly expensive leather sofa, I couldn't feel a trace of warmth. Opposite me sat Serena Sterling, the quintessential Ice Queen executive. She was my wife, well, soon-to-be ex-wife. Dressed in a perfectly tailored haute couture suit, she had her head down, reviewing a document, not bothering to spare me even a glance. 3 years. I had long since gotten used to this. I slid the divorce settlement agreement across the coffee table toward her, the paper making a soft friction sound against the glass. Sign it, Serena. From now on, we owe each other nothing. My voice was as calm as a stagnant pool, sounding unfamiliar even to my own ears. She finally looked up. That face, the one I had once loved to my very core, now held nothing but coldness and impatience. Understood. She picked up the Mont-Blanc pen from the desk and, without a moment's hesitation, signed her name at the bottom of the agreement, Serena Sterling. Her signature was just like her personality, sharp, jagged, and indifferent. Looking at those letters, the last thread of hope in my heart was severed by the stroke of her pen. I let out a long breath, feeling as if a boulder that had been crushing my chest for 3 years had finally been lifted. I was free. 3 years ago, we entered into a contract marriage. Everyone said I, Ethan Cole, had hit the jackpot, marrying the heiress of Sterling Enterprises and skipping 30 years of struggle. Struggle. For the past 3 years, I lived like a punchline. I thought a marriage required effort. I desperately tried to be good to her. I thought even a stone could be warmed up eventually. She had a sensitive stomach, so I, a man who had never stepped foot in a kitchen, forced myself to learn from cooking videos until I was practically a master chef, making different stomach-soothing soups and meals for her every day. The result? The number of times she came home could be counted on one hand. The meals I painstakingly prepared usually ended up in the trash. Her mother, my dear mother-in-law, never thought much of me. She felt I wasn't good enough for her daughter, mocking me every time we met, calling me a social climber trying to marry into wealth. Her sister, my spoiled sister-in-law, went out of her way to embarrass me. Once, in front of all our relatives, she accidentally spilled red wine on me, then covered her mouth and laughed that I was wearing a cheap, off-the-rack suit. I endured it all. I told myself that as long as Serena's heart was with me, it was all worth it. But her heart had never been with me. To help her consolidate her position in the company, I pulled 3 all-nighters to create a perfect project proposal, helping Sterling Enterprises secure a critical partnership with an overseas firm. At the celebration banquet, she stood on stage, radiant and glowing, thanking everyone, except me. Not a single word. Later, I found out everyone thought she had done the proposal herself. I became the shadow behind her success, never meant to see the light. What truly killed my hope was Julian Pierce's return. Julian, her college senior, the one who got away, her shining white knight. The moment he came back, Serena became a different person. She would smile at her phone. She would cancel important meetings just because of one sentence from him. I even saw with my own eyes how she used company resources to fill the financial holes in Julian's failing business. That was Sterling Enterprises' money. That night, when I confronted her, how did she answer me? She looked at me like I was garbage and said, "Ethan, what right do you have to control me? Don't forget, everything you have now was given to you by the Sterling family." In that instant, my heart turned to ash. It turned out that my 3 years of devotion were worthless in her eyes. I was nothing more than a dog kept by the Sterling family. So I asked for a divorce. I was leaving with nothing. I didn't want a dime. I just wanted to leave this suffocating place and find myself again. Done. Serena's icy voice interrupted my memories. She tossed the signed agreement at me like it was a piece of junk mail. "You can go now." She stood up, adjusted her suit, and didn't look at me again. Her high heels clicked, clack, 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 as she walked toward the door. I knew who she was in such a rush to see. Julian. I watched her retreating figure, the silhouette I had loved for 3 years, and for the first time, she felt so strange and distant. This was it. It was over. I picked up the agreement, ready to leave. But just then, crash. A massive noise erupted from outside the window, followed by the screeching of brakes and the screams of a crowd. My heart skipped a beat, a strong sense of unease flooding my chest. I rushed to the floor-to-ceiling window and looked down. In the middle of the avenue below, an out-of-control delivery truck had smashed into the company's planter barricade. And next to the truck, I saw a familiar figure lying in a pool of blood. And those limited edition heels I knew so well. It was Serena. My brain buzzed, instantly blanking out. My body moved faster than my thoughts. I sprinted out of the office like a madman, rushing for the elevator, rushing downstairs. I don't know how I shoved through the crowd. I only saw her lying there, the blood beneath her staining her white suit crimson. Her eyes were still open, looking in my direction, her lips moving slightly as if she were trying to say something. I collapsed to my knees beside her, my hands trembling, wanting to hold her, but terrified to touch her. Serena. Serena. I screamed her name, my voice hoarse. She seemed to hear me. Her eyes found a sliver of focus. Then, I saw a tear slide from the corner of her eye. Her hand lifted with great difficulty, not reaching toward me, but moving toward her own abdomen. That area was a blur of blood and ruin. My heart felt like it was being crushed by an invisible hand. I couldn't breathe. Why? Why did this happen? We had literally just divorced. Serena Sterling's POV pain. Indescribable agony radiated from every limb and bone, especially her abdomen, which felt like it was being torn apart alive. Consciousness was fading fast. Everything before her eyes began to blur. The last thing Serena saw was Ethan's face, written with terror and anguish. Is he sad for me? How is that possible? Shouldn't this man be wishing for my death? Darkness swallowed her completely. She didn't know how much time had passed. Sign it, Serena. From now on, we owe each other nothing. The familiar voice. Cold. Calm. Serena snapped her eyes open. The glaring office lights made her squint instinctively. She realized she was sitting in her office, clutching that Mont Blanc pen. The nib was hovering over the divorce agreement, right above the signature line designated for her. Opposite her, Ethan was watching her quietly. His eyes held a look she had never seen before. Dead silence. What is happening? Didn't I die in a car crash? Serena looked down at herself. Her white haute couture suit was spotless. No wounds, not a trace of blood, a hallucination, or a flash of life before death. Just as she was zoning out, a voice, childish and milky, yet filled with utter annoyance, exploded in her mind without warning. You idiot woman, what are you staring at? Stop. If you sign that, we're both done for. Who? Who is talking? Serena was so startled, she nearly jumped out of her chair. She jerked her head up, looking around. The office was empty except for her and Ethan. Stop looking. I'm in your belly. My dear mother. The voice rang out again, filled with frustration at her incompetence. Are you stupid? If you sign that, you're going to walk out that door and get flattened by a truck. 2 corpses, 2 lives. I don't want to die right after gaining consciousness. Imagine me, the great overlord, finally arriving in this world only to... In her belly, 2 corpses, 2 lives. Serena's brain completely short-circuited. She instinctively reached out, her hand resting on her flat abdomen. There's a child here. Ethan's child. She remembered now. A little over a month ago, she and Ethan had gotten drunk. It was the only time in 3 years they had. Afterward, she took the pill, thinking it was fine. She had been so busy with the company lately, she hadn't paid attention to the slight discomfort in her body. Could it be? Yes. It's exactly what you think. You're carrying your husband's cup, and now you want to divorce him, walk out the door, and get hit by a car. Tell me, are you stupid or what? How did I get stuck with a mom like you? My demon life is so hard. The voice in her head was ranting frantically. Serena was dizzy from the barrage of information. Rebirth. A child. The car crash. It was all too unbelievable. But that agonizing pain of death had been so real. Ethan watched her changing expression and the pen that still wouldn't touch the paper. The impatience in his eyes grew. Serena, what game are you playing now? Serena snapped back to reality. She looked at the divorce agreement in front of her, then thought about the voice screaming 2 lives. A chill shot from the soles of her feet straight to her skull. No, I can't sign. True or false. She couldn't gamble with this. Just as she moved the pen again, the voice in her head shrieked. You dare try to sign? Believe it or not, I'll make you hurt right now. As soon as the words fell, a sharp, piercing pain exploded in her lower abdomen. Ugh, Serena grunted, her face turning instantly pale. The pen dropped from her hand with a clatter onto the desk. The pain came fast and fierce, exactly like the pain during the car crash. Cold sweat instantly soaked her back. What's wrong with you? Ethan's voice seemed to carry a trace of tension he hadn't even realized himself. He stood up, instinctively wanted to walk over. Oof, at least you know what's good for you. The voice in her head sounded triumphant, and the pain in her abdomen subsided significantly. Serena gasped for air, taking in huge gulps. She now believed 100% that this was real. She had been reborn, and there was a talking ancestor in her belly. She looked up at Ethan, squeezing out a smile that was uglier than crying. I'm not feeling well today. Let's sign this another day. Ethan's footsteps halted. He looked at her pale face, his expression complicated. There was suspicion and scrutiny, but mostly a coldness that kept people 1,000 miles away. Suit yourself. He dropped those two words, grabbed his suit jacket from the sofa, and walked out without looking back. The office door clicked shut, cutting off his presence entirely. Serena collapsed in her chair, feeling as if all the strength had been drained from her body. She looked down at her abdomen, feeling fear, shock, and absurdity all at once. Who are you exactly? She asked silently in her heart. Listen well. I am the one who traverses the 9 heavens and 10 earths. The great overlord who makes 10,000 demons tremble in fear. Ugh. Never mind. You wouldn't understand. The milky, childish voice cleared its throat. You just need to know I'm your son. Right now. Your life is tied to mine. So you'd better behave. Serena felt her worldview had been thoroughly pulverized today. Ethan Coles Povey walked out of Serena's office, my mind a mess. The way she looked just now, it didn't seem like acting. Her face was as white as paper, her forehead covered in cold sweat. Was she really sick? But why did it happen right when she was about to sign the divorce papers? I shook my head, warning myself, Ethan, stop flattering yourself. This was probably just another one of her hard-to-get mind games. Hadn't there been enough of this in the last 3 years? Every time I was disheartened and ready to give up, she would casually toss me a crumb of sweetness, a word of concern, a look, reigniting the dying embers of my heart. Then, after I went through fire and water for her again, she would stomp it out without mercy. I was tired. I didn't want to play this game anymore. I returned to our home, a home in name only, and went straight to the guest room. Yes, we had been married for 3 years and had slept in separate rooms for 2.5 of them. I started packing my things. Honestly, there wasn't much to pack. In this house, the things that belonged to me were pitifully few. Some clothes, a few books, a toothbrush, a water cup. This so-called home was more like a luxury hotel where I was crashing. I packed my belongings into a suitcase, planning to move out tomorrow. As for Serena, she could stall all she wanted. My heart was already dead. What difference did a day or 2 make? That evening, I cooked a simple bowl of noodles for myself. Just as I sat down at the dining table with my bowl, the master bedroom door opened. Serena walked out. She had changed into silk pajamas. Her complexion still wasn't great. Seeing me eating noodles alone, she froze. I ignored her, picking up a chopstick full of noodles and stuffing them into my mouth. To be honest, it felt strange. We were in the same space, yet it felt like we were separated by a transparent wall. Neither of us could reach the other. She just stood there, watching me. The atmosphere was so awkward you could build a 3-bedroom apartment with attention. Just as I was about to take my bowl back to the guest room, she suddenly spoke. That's what you're eating. I nearly choked on a noodle. What I ate, did it have anything to do with her? In the past, when I made a table full of food and waited for her until midnight, did she ever care what I ate? I didn't bother answering, keeping my head down and eating. She seemed choked by my silence, standing motionless. After a while, she said again, I'm a little hungry. I stopped my chopsticks and looked up at her. What did she mean? She wanted me to cook for her? Why should I? When Ethan Cole, was your husband, cooking for you was out of affection. Now that we're about to divorce, do you think you're still the CEO, Sterling, who can order me around? I didn't say a word. I expressed my refusal through action. I sped up, finishing the noodles in 3 bites, then picked up the empty bowl and walked to the kitchen. As I passed her, I caught a whiff of the faint fragrance on her. My heart still gave an uncontrolled, sharp throb. I tossed the bowl into the sink and turned to go back to the guest room. Ethan, she suddenly called out. I stopped, but didn't look back. Are there any groceries in the kitchen? I want to make something for myself. Her voice sounded somewhat uncertain. I almost doubted my ears. Serena Sterling? Cooking for herself? The heiress who had never touched dishwater, who didn't even know how to boil water, said she wanted to cook? Did the sun rise in the west today? I turned around, looking at her like she was an alien. She seemed uncomfortable under my gaze, her eyes darting away. In the fridge, I dropped coldly, then walked into the guest room without looking back. Door closed. Locked. I didn't want any more entanglements with her. Lying in bed, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep. My brain was full of her abnormal behavior today. First refusing to sign, and now this. What exactly was she trying to do? Just as I was overthinking, a loud bang came from outside, followed by the acrid smell of burning and Serena's scream. My heart jumped. My first reaction was to rush out. but my hand froze on the doorknob. Ethan, have you forgotten how she treated you? Why do you still care? Let her deal with it herself. But what if something happened? Damn it. A war waged in my mind, but eventually I couldn't stop myself. I yanked the door open. The living room was already filled with thick smoke, all coming from the kitchen. I rushed in, and the scene before me made me want to laugh and cry. Serena stood there, face covered in soot, a pan as black as coal in front of her. The contents were unrecognizable, billowing thick smoke. Seeing me, she looked like she saw a savior. Her eyes even held a hint of grievance. I must be crazy to think she looked aggrieved. Without a word, I walked over, turned off the gas, turned on the exhaust hood, and deftly threw the ruined pan into the sink. Throughout the process, I didn't look at her once. After cleaning up the mess, I turned to leave. Suddenly my wrist was grabbed. Her hand was cold and trembling slightly. Ethan, I'm sorry. I froze. This was the first time in 3 years I had heard the words, I'm sorry, come out of her mouth. Serena Sterling's POV Serena wanted to cry at her own stupidity. She just wanted to learn from Ethan and make something, even just boiling noodles. She wanted to ease the tension, at least ensure the divorce papers wouldn't be signed today. The result? She almost burned the kitchen down. When Ethan rushed in and expressionlessly cleaned up the mess, Serena felt her face burning hot. Embarrassing. Too embarrassing. Stupid woman. Do you have some misunderstanding about your own motor skills? You can't even work a microwave, and you want to learn to stir fry like Dad? Are you trying to torture yourself, or torture that pan? In her head, the little monster, claiming to be her son, started his daily roast. Serena had gone from shock to numbness. She found that apart from having a sharp tongue, this little monster didn't seem bad. At least he saved her life. When Ethan finished cleaning and turned to leave with that cold face, Serena didn't know where she got the courage, but she grabbed his wrist. Ethan, I'm sorry. The words slipped out. After saying them, she stunned herself. When had Serena Sterling ever apologized to anyone? Ethan was stunned too. He turned, his eyes full of inquiry and disbelief. Sorry for what? He asked, no emotion in his voice. I shouldn't have made the kitchen like this. Serena found a lame excuse. Is that what you should apologize for? You should be hugging Dad's leg, crying, Hubby, I was wrong. My brain was turned to mush. I was tricked by that two-faced snake Julian. I'll never divorce you. That is the correct operation, okay? The little monster in her head was jumping anxiously. Serena's face turned even redder. How could she say something so shameless? Ethan looked at her, a flicker of mockery passing through his eyes. It doesn't matter. I won't be living in this house much longer anyway. He gently shook off her hand, his tone distant and polite. With that, he returned to the guest room and didn't come out again. Serena stood alone in the messy kitchen, staring at his closed door. For the first time, an indescribable sourness and panic surged in her heart. He really seemed like he was leaving. This thought pierced her heart like a needle for the first time. Before, no matter how she neglected him or ignored him, he was like a tireless spinning top, circling around her. But now, the way he looked at her was colder than how one looks at a stranger. Now you know fear? Too late. Dad's heart has been damaged by you so badly, it's like a QR code that won't scan. Let me tell you, if you don't step it up, Dad is going to be snatched away by some flashy hussy outside. What flashy hussy? Serena instinctively asked internally. Who else? It's that woman named Victoria Lane, the new partner in the company. She looks decent on the outside, but she's definitely plotting against Dad. Dad was laughing and talking with her just this afternoon. The little monster's voice was filled with a sense of crisis. Victoria Lane? Serena remembered. She was a representative from a partner company expanding new business, an outstanding career woman. Ethan was laughing and talking with her. An inexplicable irritation and jealousy rose uncontrollably from the bottom of her heart. This was the first time she had felt such strong emotions because Ethan was close to another woman. Feeling the crisis? Good. Listen to me. Go to the company tomorrow and declare sovereignty. Let him know you are the queen. Declare sovereignty? Serena frowned. She had never done such a thing. Oh my God, Mom. You are worrying me to death. The little monster sighed deeply. Fine, fine. This great overlord will reluctantly give you some on-site guidance. The next day, Serena broke precedent. Instead of going directly to her CEO office, she found herself, as if possessed, walking toward Ethan's department. Although Ethan held the title of vice president, in the company he was more like a senior project manager, doing the hardest and most tiring work. As soon as she reached the department entrance, she saw the scene inside through the glass wall. Ethan was standing next to Victoria's desk, leaning down slightly, pointing at something on the computer screen, discussing it with her. The two were very close. Victoria looked up at him, a gentle smile on her face, her eyes filled with undisguised admiration. And Ethan, though his expression remained mild, had a relaxation about his brows and eyes that he never showed in front of Serena. The scene was incredibly piercing. Serena felt like her heart was blocked by something, suffocating her. See, that woman's eyes are practically glued to Dad. Attack. Rush in there. Use your belly to stage an accident. Say your stomach hurts and make him take you to the hospital. The little monster was frantically strategizing in her brain. Stage an accident? Serena's mouth twitched. That was two. But looking at the two of them chatting happily, she gritted her teeth, steeled her heart, and pushed open the department door. She deliberately pretended not to see Victoria, walking straight to Ethan, her voice carrying a trace of grievance she didn't even notice herself. Ethan, I'm not feeling well. Ethan and Victoria turned to look at her simultaneously. Ethan's brow immediately furrowed. Why are you here? Victoria stood up, smiling politely at her. Hello, CEO Sterling. Serena didn't even look at her, staring straight at Ethan. Act. Keep acting. Cover your stomach. Make your expression more painful. Yes, furrow your brows tighter. Oh my God, you have zero talent for acting. Listening to the off-site coaching in her head, Serena took a deep breath, lifted her hand to cover her lower abdomen, and squeezed out a pained expression. She calculated the angle, softened her body, and prepared to fall into Ethan's arms. But then her foot actually snagged on something. She really lost her balance, let out a cry of surprise, and fell solidly forward. It's over. I messed up the act. The expected pain didn't come. She fell into a warm, familiar embrace. It was Ethan. He had instinctively caught her. His arms were strong, holding her steadily. Buried in his chest, smelling the clean, pleasant scent on him, Serena's heart skipped a beat. Ethan Colespovey admit, the moment Serena fell into my arms, my heart faltered. Her body was soft, carrying a familiar fragrance. For a split second, I almost thought we had returned to the past. But the feeling lasted less than 3 seconds. I woke up immediately. I helped her stand steady, then quickly let go, taking a step back to create distance between us. A flash of disappointment crossed her face, but she hid it quickly. CEO Sterling, are you all right? Victoria asked with concern, a hint of inquiry in her eyes. I'm fine. Serena shook her head, then looked at me again. Ethan, my stomach hurts a little. Can you take me to the hospital? Her voice was soft, carrying a hint of pleading. If this were before, I would have agreed without hesitation, terrified something was wrong. But now I just found it laughable. It was happening again, that tone of treating me like a tool. When she needed me, she showed weakness. When she didn't, she kicked me away. I looked at her, my heart cold. The company has drivers. You can have your assistant arrange one. I still have work to do. I refused, my tone without a ripple. I saw the light in her eyes dim instantly. She bit her lip, seemingly shocked that I would reject her so bluntly. Victoria stood aside, smart enough not to speak, just watching quietly. In the office, the gazes of all the colleagues drifted toward us, the atmosphere awkward to the extreme. Ethan, she seemed to want to say more. Just then, my phone rang. I took it out. It was an unfamiliar number. I walked aside and answered. Hello, is this Mr. Ethan Cole? On the other end was a cultured, elegant male voice. Speaking. Who is this? Hello, I'm Julian Pierce. Julian. Hearing that name, my pupils constricted sharply. I instinctively looked at Serena, noticing her face had changed too, her eyes filled with panic. Oh, is there something you need? I try to make my voice sound calm. It's like this. Julian's tone sounded polite, but carried a haughty superiority. I heard you and Serena are having conflicts lately. Maybe even divorcing. He paused, then continued. Mr. Cole, I know you might have some misunderstandings about my relationship with Serena, but we're just friends. Serena, Serena doesn't love you. I hope you won't hurt her over a small thing like divorce. Heh, I almost laughed out loud. What was this? The real owner showing up to declare sovereignty, giving me, the husband, a dressing down? How hypocritical. Mr. Pierce, I interrupted him. The matters between Serena and me are between husband and wife. I don't recall it being the business of an outsider, do you? Julian, on the other end, seemed surprised by my rudeness and fell silent for a few seconds. Haha, Mr. Cole, don't misunderstand. I'm just concerned about Serena. Concerned? In what capacity is Mr. Pierce concerned about my wife? College senior? Or something else? Like a homewrecker? I exposed him mercilessly. You. Julian's tone finally held a trace of anger. Mr. Pierce, if you called to gloat, then congratulations, you succeeded. Serena is yours. I'm stepping out. Please don't bother me again in the future. With that, I hung up directly. I didn't want to hear another word from him. It was disgusting. I turned around to find Serena staring dead at me, her face terrifyingly pale. Was that Julian calling? She asked. Who else? I retorted. She opened her mouth, wanting to explain something, but in the end, said nothing. Looking at her like this, the last bit of reluctance in my heart vanished. See, this is the man she loves. A man who hides in the shadows, using underhanded tactics to sow discord. I was blind to think such a person could be my rival. He wasn't even fit to carry my shoes. Ignoring her, I turned to Victoria. Director Lane, let's continue. Victoria nodded, gave Serena a complicated look, and refocused on work. I treated Serena like thin air. She stood behind me for a long, long time, long enough that I thought she would stand there forever. Finally, I heard the sound of her turning and leaving, her heels clicking on the floor, each step sounding like it was stomping on my heart. But this time, my heart wouldn't hurt anymore, because it was numb. Serena Sterling's POV when she heard Ethan say the name Julian Pierce, Serena's brain buzzed. Why did he call Ethan? What did he want? Here it comes. Here it comes. Showtime for Mr. Two-Faced. Listen to that. We're just friends. She cares about you deep down, blah. I'm going to vomit through the phone line. The little monster started a play-by-play commentary in her brain. What is he doing? He's fanning the flames. He wants you divorced immediately, so he can scam your money fair and square. Serena's heart sank bit by bit. She listened to Ethan's merciless counterattack, listened to him hang up. When Ethan looked at her with those cold, mocking eyes, she felt stripped naked, all her embarrassment and shame exposed to the air. She wanted to explain. She wanted to say it wasn't like that. But what could she say? That Julian was just a senior. Even she didn't believe that nothing was going on. Yet she had hurt Ethan over and over again for Julian's sake. Any explanation seemed pale and powerless in the face of facts. She could only watch helplessly as Ethan turned his back, continuing to discuss work with Victoria, treating her as completely transparent. In that moment, Serena tasted a flavor she had never known before. It was called heartbreak. She fled that suffocating place in disgrace. Back in her office, she immediately took out her phone, found Julian's number, and dialed. The call connected quickly. Serena, you finally contacted me. I thought. Why did you call Ethan? Serena interrupted him coldly. Julian on the other end paused, then used an aggrieved tone. I was just worried about you. I heard he wants to divorce you, and I was afraid he might cause trouble. Serena, I'm doing this for your own good. For your own good? He's doing it for the cash in your pocket. Stupid woman, wake up. This man has, I am a fraud, written from head to toe. For my own good? Serena laughed coldly. For my good, you go and provoke him, making our already bad relationship even worse. I didn't. Serena, how can you think of me like that? Is that the kind of person I am in your heart? Julian sounded incredibly hurt. If it were before, Serena would have softened immediately and apologized. But now, listening to the little monster's real-time roasting in her head and recalling Julian's behavior since returning to the States, she questioned her judgment for the first time. Since Julian came back, he had never truly cared about whether she was tired or happy. What he talked about most was her company, her projects, and when she would get divorced. Today, he deliberately called to provoke Ethan. Was that the behavior of a polite, decent man? He had even hinted more than once that she should transfer some core company assets to his name, beautifully claiming it was preparing for our future. Before, she was blinded by so-called love, thinking this was his way of showing affection. Now, thinking about it sent shivers down her spine. Figure it out? This Julian isn't some Prince Charming first love. He's just gum stuck to your shoe, looks harmless, but is actually annoying and dirty. My dad is the handsome, capable, fully benefited, ultimate good man. Serena took a deep breath, suppressing the turmoil in her heart. Julian, I'm very busy lately. The company has a lot going on. We'll talk about the divorce later. Without waiting for his reaction, she hung up. She leaned back in her chair, physically and mentally exhausted. She decided she was going to investigate Julian. Not for anything else, but to give herself an answer. And to give Ethan an explanation. Ethan Cole's POV. For the next few days, because of Julian's provocation, Serena and I fell into a complete Cold War. We lived under the same roof, but were strangers. I left early and came home late every day, pouring all my energy into work to avoid running into her. And she was surprisingly quiet. She didn't come to the department to find me, nor did she pull any stunts. This gave me a sense of relief, but also a trace of inexplicable disappointment. See, humans are just that pathetic. One night, I was working overtime at the company. Victoria brought me a cup of coffee. Still busy? She asked with a smile. Yeah, just the last bit. I nodded. You and your wife. She hesitated, but asked anyway, is everything okay? I put down the file in my hand and looked at her. Director Lane, this is a personal matter. Victoria apologized immediately. I just feel. CEO Sterling, she seems to care about you. Care about me? I smiled self-deprecatingly. If she really cared, the last 3 years wouldn't have been a joke. Ethan, Victoria looked at me, her eyes serious. I know I might not have the right to say this, but I can see you are a talented and responsible man. You shouldn't be trapped in an unhappy marriage. Her voice was gentle, carrying an understanding power. I admit, I was moved for a moment. The feeling of being understood and appreciated was too long absent. Thank you, Director Lane, I said sincerely. Call me Victoria or Vicky. She winked at me, her smile holding a hint of playfulness. Just then, my office door was pushed open. Serena stood in the doorway, staring at us expressionlessly. She frowned, her eyes like knives dipped in ice, shooting straight at Victoria. The smile on Victoria's face froze for a second, but quickly returned to natural. She stood up and nodded to Serena. CEO Sterling. Serena ignored her, walked straight to me, and slammed a file folder onto my desk with a thud. Read this. Her voice was cold enough to chip ice. I frowned, not knowing what she was up to. I opened the folder and pulled out a stack of documents. When I saw the contents, my pupils instantly contracted. It was all dirt on Julian. His so-called startup in the U.S. was a shell company used for money laundering. His return wasn't for a fresh start. He was being chased by debt collectors and couldn't survive abroad anymore. The company he founded here was also just a shell. And his goal in approaching Serena was clear from the start. He was after the Sterling family fortune. The file even contained chat logs between him and his accomplices. Wait until I handle that stupid woman Serena and get the Sterling money. Then we go abroad and live like kings. She still thinks I'm her innocent first love. It's hilarious. The more I read, the colder my heart got, and the tighter my fist clenched. This Julian was utter trash. I looked up sharply at Serena. Her eyes were red. She was biting her lip hard, and her body was trembling slightly. I couldn't imagine how earth-shattering it must have been for her to read these things. After all, that was the man she had loved for so many years. What do you want me to do? I asked, my voice hoarse. She took a deep breath, a glint of resolve flashing in her eyes. Ethan, I know I wronged you. Before, I was blind. I was a jerk. But right now, he still holds many of Sterling Enterprises' cooperative projects and funds. I can't let that scum ruin the Sterling family, ruin my father's life's work. She looked at me, her eyes holding a fragility and pleading I had never seen before. Help me, please. Let's join forces to bring him down. Make him pay for everything he's done. I looked at her red eyes, looked at the regret and pain at the bottom of them. I fell silent. Honestly, I didn't care about the Sterling family. The law would handle trash like Julian. I just wanted to leave this vortex as soon as possible. But seeing her like this, my heart, which should have been dead, annoyingly rippled again. I couldn't forget. When I first married into the Sterling family and everyone looked down on me, she stood up and told everyone, Ethan is my person. Try touching him and see what happens. Although that might have just been her heiress temper defending her property, I remembered it for 3 years. Okay, I heard myself say, I'll help you. Let's deal with the rabid dog outside first. Then we can settle the account between us. Victoria stood aside, taking it all in. She said nothing, just quietly exited the office, thoughtfully closing the door for us. Only Serena and I were left. The atmosphere was subtle. Thank you, she whispered. I didn't speak, just reorganized the documents and put them back in the folder. He's been following up on the West City project recently, trying to get a slice of the pie from us. I said, this is an opportunity. She nodded, her eyes returning to the sharpness a CEO should have. I know what to do. Looking at her in that moment, I suddenly felt that we had never been as aligned as we were now. How ironic. Serena Sterling's POV. After getting Ethan's promise of, I'll help you, the stone hanging in Serena's heart finally landed. She knew that if Ethan was willing to act, Julian would have absolutely no chance of turning things around. She knew Ethan's business talent better than anyone. It was just that before, she was blinded by infatuation and prejudice and refused to admit it. At least you have some conscience, Nona begged my dad. The little monster grumbled in her head. But let me remind you, after dealing with that guy named Pierce, you need to work harder on Dad. The fire in the crematorium of chasing back your husband isn't burning hot enough yet. Serena's cheeks heated slightly. She knew Solving Julian was just the first step. The massive chasm between her and Ethan was the hardest thing to bridge. In the following days, Serena and Ethan began their joint operation. They had meetings, analyzed projects involving Julian's company, and formulated plans against him. Their communication increased, though mostly limited to work. But even so, it gave Serena a long-lost sense of sweetness. She began to crave this feeling. She would use work discussions as an excuse to drag things out until late, then say, "It's late, let's grab dinner together." Ethan usually wouldn't refuse, but he wasn't enthusiastic. They would go to a restaurant near the company, sit face to face, and eat quietly. Most of the time, it was Serena finding topics to talk about, while Ethan would only respond with an occasional "more." The atmosphere remained awkward, but Serena never tired of it. She began to observe Ethan. She discovered he was quiet when he ate, disliking conversation. He liked his Americanos black, no sugar. When reading files, he habitually tapped his finger on the desk. These details she had never noticed before now seemed incredibly clear and charming. "My husband is so handsome." "Simp, are you drooling? Is Dad's handsomeness something you can just stare at?" The little monster came online for his daily check-in. "What's the use of looking? Act. Give him some food. Pour him water. Show your gentle and virtuous side." Serena blushed at the scolding. As if possessed by a ghost, she actually picked up a piece of food with her chopsticks and placed it in Ethan's bowl. Ethan's eating motion paused. He looked up, staring at her with complex eyes. "I could do it myself." Saying that, he silently moved that piece of food to the side. He didn't eat it. Serena's heart instantly went cold halfway. Does he hate me that much? He won't even touch food I touched. Strong grievances and sadness surged up. Her eyes reddened instantly, her mouth turning down. "Oh no, too aggressive." The little monster patted his. "Well, he didn't have a forehead yet. Dad is skittish right now. You have to take it slow, step by step." Serena sniffled, holding back the tears. She couldn't cry. She had no right to cry. She brought all of this on herself. Some time passed. The plan went smoothly. At a crucial project bidding meeting, Julian took the stage with his carefully prepared proposal, full of confidence. He didn't know his proposal had long been figured out by Ethan, and Ethan had set countless traps waiting for him. In front of all the partners and media, Ethan clearly and logically pointed out the fatal loopholes and falsified data in Julian's plan, point by point. Then, Serena stepped up. In front of everyone, she played the audio recordings exposing Julian's shell company, his embezzlement of sterling funds, and those filthy chat logs. The audience was in an uproar. Julian's face went from red to pale, then to iron gray. He stood on stage like a dog that had been skinned, accepting the scorn and spittle of the crowd. "Serena Sterling, you set me up," he screamed hysterically, pointing at her. "You brought this on yourself. I was so good to you, yet you were plotting against me from the start." Serena looked at him coldly, no warmth in her eyes. The Prince Charming, that once made her heart flutter, now only disgusted her. Julian was ruined. Saddled with massive debt and suspected of fraud, he was soon taken away by the police. It was immensely satisfying. With the big trouble of Julian solved, Serena thought her relationship with Ethan could thaw. She thought they could start over. That night, she meticulously prepared a table of food. Although the presentation wasn't great, it was the result of her long effort. Like a little wife waiting for her husband, she dressed up beautifully and sat at the dining table waiting for Ethan. The door opened. Ethan returned. Seeing the table of food and her dressed up, he froze. "Ethan, celebrating our victory." Serena stood up and smiled at him. Ethan didn't speak. He just walked up to her and placed a document on the dining table. It was that divorce settlement agreement, just a reprinted copy. The smile on Serena's face solidified instantly. Julian's matter is resolved. Ethan looked at her, his tone calm, without a ripple. "Our cooperation ends here too. Now, can you sign it?" Ethan Coles-Povey looked at Serena's instantly paling face. There was no thrill of revenge in my heart, only a desolate exhaustion. This farce needed to end. "What?" She looked at me, her voice trembling. Aren't we already? We were just partners." I interrupted her. "The cooperation is over, so naturally, we return to the starting point." "Starting point?" She laughed self-deprecatingly. "Our starting point is divorce. Is that it?" I didn't answer, taking it as a default yes. "Ethan," she suddenly stepped forward and hugged me, gripping my arm, her eyes filled with panic and pleading. "Don't go, okay? Give me one more chance. I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. Before, I was bad. I was a jerk. I was blind. Forgive me this once, just this once." She was crying. Tears rolled down from her beautiful eyes like broken pearls. This was the first time I'd seen her cry so sadly, so helplessly. If it were before, my heart would have ached terribly. I would have held her tight and clumsily comforted her. But now I just watched her quietly, my heart like still water. Some things, once done wrong, remain wrong. You can't just say, "I'm sorry," and pretend nothing happened. I pried her fingers off one by one. "Serena, it's too late," I said. "My heart died in your neglect and hurt, time after time." "No, no." She shook her head frantically, as if trying to convince me, or herself. "I can warm it up. Ethan, I can." Suddenly, as if remembering something, she grabbed my hand and pressed it against her lower abdomen. "Feel it. Here. There is our child. I'm pregnant, Ethan. It's your child." She looked at me with expectation, thinking this was her last and strongest card. I felt her flat abdomen under my palm. Child. My brain went blank for a second. But soon, it was replaced by immense absurdity and anger. Child? She was actually using a child as an excuse to keep me? What did she take me for? A fool she could summon and dismiss at will? I yanked my hand back, looking at her with eyes cold as ice. "Serena, do you think I'd still believe that?" I sneered, speaking the cruelest words of my life. "This child is Julian's, isn't it? Haven't you two been inseparable lately? You even have a child. So why are you coming to me? Or did Julian fall, and now you want me to be the cheap father? Serena, I wish you and your child happiness." My words were like the sharpest knife, slicing her into pieces. I saw the blood drain from her face instantly, her body swaying as if she would collapse at any moment. Her lips trembled, wanted to say something, but unable to produce a single word. In those eyes that were once so proud and bright, now, only despair and deathly silence remained. I knew I won. I paid her back double using the way she once hurt me. But why did my heart hurt so much? Hurting like it was going to crack open. I dared not look at her again, afraid I would soften. I turned and strode out of that place, fleeing. Behind me came the sound of her heart-wrenching sobbing. Serena Sterling's POV this child is Julian's, isn't it? When Ethan said that sentence, Serena felt her entire world collapse. How could he think of her like that? She admitted she had admired Julian before, but she, Serena Sterling, had her own lines. During the marriage, she and Julian had always been innocent. How could this child be Julian's? Bastard. Son of my dad. How could he say that? I am furious. This great overlord wants to go out there and fight him. In her head, the little monster was so angry he was incoherent, jumping with rage for the first time. But Serena couldn't feel a shred of anger. She only felt overwhelming sorrow and despair. So, in his heart, she was that kind of loose, shameless woman. So, he had never trusted her. All her strength was drained. Serena signed the divorce agreement in a daze. She watched Ethan's retreating back, unable to even speak a word to make him stay. Say what? He didn't believe. Whatever she said was useless. In the days that followed, Serena was like a walking corpse. She didn't go to the company. She locked herself in that empty house. Ethan's things were all gone. In this house, there wasn't a single trace of his presence anymore. She had insomnia all night, every night, missing Ethan's goodness to her, closing her eyes only to see his cold, disappointed eyes. Stupid woman, are you just going to give up like this? Dad was just blinded by anger for a moment. You need to show proof. Go do a prenatal paternity test. Slap the report in his face. The little monster roared in her head, hating iron for not becoming steel. Proof. Yes, proof. Serena seemed to grab the last straw. She acted immediately, using all her connections to get a DNA test report for her, Ethan, and the fetus in the fastest time possible. The report clearly showed a parent-child relationship between them. Clutching that report like a ticket to happiness, she rushed out like a madwoman. She needed to know where Ethan was. She checked his credit card records, tracked his movements. Finally, she found him at the airport. He was about to go through security, Victoria standing beside him. The two of them looked so compatible. Serena's eyes reddened instantly. She rushed over regardless of everything, hugging him tightly from behind. Ethan, don't go. Ethan's body stiffened. Turning to see it was her, his brow furrowed tight. Victoria also looked at her in surprise. Serena, let go. Ethan tried to pull her off. I won't. Serena hugged tighter. She held the test report up to his face, crying and shouting, Look, the child is yours. It's really yours. That night, you drank too much, don't you remember? The child is really yours. I have nothing with Julian. I am innocent. Ethan, believe me. Believe me just this once, okay? She cried until she could barely speak, trampling all her pride and self-esteem underfoot. She could give up everything in the Sterling family. She could want nothing else. She just wanted him. In the airport, everyone looked their way, pointing and whispering. Ethan looked at her near collapse, looked at the report in her hand. Shock, emotion, and pain flashed in his eyes. He was silent for a long, long time. Long enough for Serena to think he would soften. Then, he raised his hand and gently patted her head. The movement was incredibly gentle. Just like before, every time she threw a tantrum, he would do this, helplessly and dotingly patting her head. Serena's heart instantly ignited with hope. Did he forgive her? Serena, he spoke. His voice was light and soft, yet carried a cruel calmness. I don't love you anymore. Serena Sterling's Povey don't love you anymore. 6 simple words, yet like a bolt of lightning. They struck Serena, charring her outside and shattering her soul. Her hands holding him slipped down weakly. Her mind went blank. He said, he doesn't love her anymore. So this was the most hurtful thing. More than misunderstanding, more than accusation, more than any vicious language. He believed the child was his, but he didn't love her anymore. Ethan didn't look at her again. He turned, pulled his suitcase, and walked into security with Victoria. His back view held not a shred of lingering attachment. Serena stood there like a statue with its soul removed, letting the people around her point, letting tears blur the entire world. She lost. She lost completely. Sigh, stupid woman, don't cry. The voice of the little monster in her head carried a clumsy comfort for the first time. Men, out with the old, in with the new. Puffed. No, Dad is just stubborn. He definitely still has you in his heart. Look, he even patted your head just now. Serena didn't respond. She felt her heart had flown away with Ethan. Several months later, a loud cry of a baby came from the VIP ward of the hospital. Serena gave birth. It was a boy, lying on the hospital bed, pale-faced, looking at the wrinkly little guy the nurse held. Her eyes were complex. This was the only connection left between her and Ethan. She didn't abort him, because she couldn't bear to, and also because this little monster, who had lived in her belly for 10 months, bickering with her every day, had become an inseparable part of her life. Hey, stupid woman, have you stared enough? Find me something to eat. This great overlord is hungry. The newborn little guy yelled at her mind with full vigor. A faint smile finally appeared on the corner of Serena's mouth. She became a single mother, running the massive Sterling Enterprises while raising this wingman son who made her both love and hate him. Life was busy and fulfilling. She didn't disturb Ethan's life anymore. She only occasionally saw news of him in financial reports. He went abroad, partnered with Victoria to start his own company, and was incredibly successful. There was no place for her by his side anymore. The only fortunate thing was that he didn't seem to become lovers with Victoria. One day, Serena sat in front of the floor-to-ceiling window, holding her chubby, white son, watching the traffic outside. Baby, she whispered to the son in her arms. Do you think Daddy misses us? Misses. Definitely misses. The little guy waved his tiny fist in her brain. He must be regretting it to death right now. Serena smiled bitterly and didn't speak. Stupid woman, don't lose heart, hey. The little monster seemed to sense her low mood and started cheering her on. The road to winning back a husband is long and arduous. We just finished the novice village mission. Next is the real challenge. I have already formulated a perfect demon lord mom chasing husband plan. Step 1. Raise this great overlord to be chubby and undeniably cute. Step 2. Wait until I learn to talk. Then I'll video call him every day and meld him with my cuteness. Step 3. Listening to her son chattering in her head, planning the scheme to win her husband back. The light in Serena's eyes gradually returned. Yes, the road is still long. She was no longer the high and mighty CEO Sterling. She was just a clumsy woman who wanted to chase her husband back, and a little monster determined to help his mom and dad reunite. Although the road to chasing her husband was hard, looking at this fresh little life in her arms, she felt that perhaps it wasn't too late for everything. Story complete.